guys, and welcome to Odds on Serie A. Let's analyze the 20th match day, but the Scudetto race, Danny, is almost over. We have all the big teams in Italy in crisis.
Well, Napoli plus 12 on Milan, plus 13 on Inter, Roma and Lazio in the third place. And it's been just a small matter of 15 points deduction for Juventus. So, yeah, it's been a quiet week, really, for Italian football.
Indeed, a lot to talk about in this new match day that we have this weekend. So, guys, remember to leave your comments, of course, your tips, and don't forget, press the like and subscribe. We have to talk a lot about the big teams in Italy because they are full of news. But let's start with the relegation battle. We have on Friday 2 games. The first one is Bologna Spezia, both teams in the half bottom part of the table. Bologna coming from a draw, a bit disappointing, I would say, against Cremonese. Spezia, another defeat at home, this time against Roma. But remember, Danny, that they surprised us. Last time they traveled, they beat Torino away.
Yeah, they won two of the last three away, Spezia, and they are in a very good form. They were unbeaten in 5. They lost against Roma, but score in all the last 4 away games. Spezia under Gotti become a solid side. The problem is that against Roma, they were without Nzola, who already scored 9 goals and is going to be out until the end of February. And they've sold Kivior to Arsenal. So out of a sudden, they were a very weak team. Also, Bastoni might be doubtful for this one. So Spezia go to Bologna not in a great situation, whereas Bologna against Cremonese was 1-1, disappointing. I thought they were going to win that one. They created a lot. They were also entertaining to watch at time, helped by Orsolini, who's been in great form this season. It is a team that is still without Arnautovic. They might have it back this week, but they're still missing Medel, Sansone, Bonifazzi. So Thiago Motta is have to do with the few resources he's got. He's a very young team as well. Score in the last 7 home games, whereas Spezia away, apart from the last couple of results, they won at Verona, won at Torino. They only scored 4 goals away so far. I think Spezia will probably try to win all the winnables at home and away. To pick up points, but I can't imagine them really going on the attack, especially because they are without Nzola. As I said, these are 2 of the worst defenses in Serie A, by the way, conceding both 30 goals. But I don't think there are going to be many goals for this one, so you could go for an under 2.5 goals. I prefer to go for both to score no here, which pays 2.
All right, and the other game this Friday, we have Lecce, Salernitana, 2 teams from the south of Italy, both lost in the last match day. Lecce against Verona, and Salernitana against Napoli, only 1 point in the last 6 games for Salernitana. And we know, Danny, that Lecce, they are very good at home this season.
Lecce and Salernitana, they're only 2 points apart. Lecce got 2 more points, 20 points, Salernitana 18, but they seem very far apart for the way the season has gone. Actually, Lecce has been much better because they've been able to match up even with the top teams, whereas Salernitana always a little bit leaky, and now obviously in defense, and now the chaos of sacking Nicola and then calling him back. Lecce collected the first defeat after 6 good results, but they were dominated by Verona. Verona is one of the most informed team at the moment. They got 20 points, Lecce, which is an excellent tally, which means if now in the second round of fixtures they collect, let's say, 15 points, which is not much, I think they will be saved anyway. Score less goals than Salernitana, Lecce, but they are more solid. As I mentioned, they are unbeaten in 4 at home, and they always scored at home this season, apart from when they played Juventus. And there were some big teams in there as well. Salernitana, will they be a little bit more cautious now? Nicola's been sacked, has been called back. Is he going to be looking more to try and defend, not concede many goals? We'll see. There were a lot of young players on the pitch against Napoli. They were beaten 2-0. Napoli were better, but Salernitana had a decent chance with Piontek. No wins in the last 7. no wins in 2023. Reverse fixture finished 2-1. Lecce won it at Salerno. I think there could be a similar outcome in terms of goals, and I like the over 2.25 goals, 193, which means if there are only 2 goals in the game, you lose half your stake.
Yeah, the thing that happened with David and Nicola, I think, Danny, this is unique in Italian football. He was sacked, and only 2 days after, he was rehired by the club. You mentioned that was very weird, actually, for him to be in ACCA because he was the man of the miracle in the previous season, but now he is back to help Salernitana to stay in Serie A 1 more year for sure. The other 2 teams that we are going to talk about, they will stay in Serie A. Empoli Torino is the next game, both in the middle part of the standings. Empoli, huge surprise, beating Inter in San Siro before they were able to beat Salernitana. No defeats in the last 5, so they are in really good form. Whereas Torino also surprised us, Danny, with that victory in Florence in the Artemio Franchi against Fiorentina. I guess it's difficult to predict this one. Something that we've been seeing in these teams' games is a low-scoring game. Perhaps we can see not many goals in Empoli.
That's true, and both wins at the weekend, they were both deserved for both Empoli and Torino. 2 great results. Torino dominated Fiorentina for an hour. They got the first win in Florence since 1976, but it was deserved. Another goal for Miranchuk, 4th goal of the season. He started leaving his mark. Look, for Torino, there is a question mark because midweek they go to Florence again to play the quarterfinals of the Coppa Italia, and this is a really important game for them because if they beat Fiorentina, they'd be in the semi-final against the winner of Roma and Cremonese. So all of a sudden, the possibility of playing a final looms. So let's see what happens, whether Juric is going to make a few changes. It's a big week for Torino. They're only 2 points behind Udinese, so they're really close to European spots. And, with the Juventus being penalized 15 points, all of a sudden, the opportunity opens for Torino, not only to finish above Juventus, but to actually to go into Europe. Only 2 defeats in the last 10, Torino. They've hit form. They don't score many goals, but they've been solid and aggressive. Whereas Empoli, 2nd ever win at San Siro in the history. The last time was in 2004, again, against Inter, 1-0. Deserved. They show the quality of the many young players they got. Baldanzi, Parisi, who, by the way, is suspended for this one. The keeper, Viviano, is outstanding. Bayern Munich wants him. I think he's going to go into a top club. They are 9th, 3 points away from Europe. So again, that could be a little bit of a miracle. Unbeaten in 5, won 4 of the last 5. And the strange thing is, last year, they were much better away from home than at home. This season, they are very good at home. And I think they're going to score goals. They're not set up really to defend, I think, Empoli. There is a team that plays on the front foot. And I think so is Torino as well. Both to score, 206.
All right, Empoli, as you've mentioned, they beat Inter in San Siro. Next game is Cremonese Inter. The numbers I was checking in the Girone Dandata, Danny, in the first part of the season for Inter in Serie A are very poor, actually, for Inzaghi, the worst in the recent years. It's strange, no, seeing how they played against Empoli after that great victory in the derby in the Super Cup.
Tired. They were tired. They were leggy. You could tell, 6 hours on the plane to Riyadh and back, left at all. The game was played on Wednesday, and then they had Empoli on Monday, and I predicted it. I saw Inter are not going to win this one, or they're going to win it comfortably, and it was right to go with the Asian handicap for Empoli. Look, I think the fact that they went down to 10 men, Skriniar was suspended. Now there is all the big question mark whether Skriniar is leaving now or at the end of the season when his contract expires and goes PSG. He kind of unsettled a little bit the environment. But also, there is a bit of a lack of creativity and invention from Inzaghi. I think when Skriniar was sent off, he decided to basically to do a switch to keep the same system, whereas he could have tried maybe something a little bit more inventive. The goals have clearly dried up for Inter. Okay, they scored 3 against Milan, and a very good performance. They were really aggressive from the start. But if you look at the numbers, if Lukaku is the shadow of himself. If Dzeko doesn't score, Lautaro doesn't score, It's very difficult for Inter really to find an opening. For this one, they're going to be without Barella, who suspended. They're a big disappointment in Serie A. They're minus 9 points compared to last season, 6 defeats in the first 19, 20 goals conceded on their travel away, third worst defense. But Cremonese, they look more solid, to be fair, with Ballardini, against Napoli and Bologna, 2 draws away, both with both scoring games, but they need to start winning. They haven't beaten Inter since 1992, I remember the game when they won at Milano 2-0. 4 of the last 5 home games for Cremonese have been under 2.5 goals. So again, they don't tend to score many goals. I think Inter need to react. Inter will react here, and they're going to pick up the 3 points. The win for Inter doesn't pay amazingly well. Go for an Asian handicap, -1, 188. If Inter wins 1-0 or 2-1, you get your money back.
Well, Inter, when they play away, they are 9th in the standings, 4 victories, 1 draw, 4 defeats, and as you mentioned before, 20 goals conceded. That's a lot. They have to improve in the second part of the season, at least to qualify for the Champions League, because it's going to be tough. For instance, we have Atalanta back in the fight for the Champions League spots. Atalanta-Sampdoria is the next game. Atalanta, free-flow football. This is Gasperini style and not what we've seen in the season. 3 each against Juventus, and Dani, 20 goals scored in the last 5 games. I guess we should expect them also to beat Sampdoria. The defeat against Udinese was almost a killer for Sampdoria.
They missed a lot of chances against Udinese. They had the game almost controlled in the first half, and then they got punished at the end, last minute. And, again, after the defeat at Empoli, they didn't deserve to lose. Another defeat. They only got 9 points in the table. They don't score. They don't score enough goals. No goals in the last 4 games for Sampdoria. They're always going to lose, of course. They only score in 1 of the last 9 games when they won 2-1 at Sassuolo. So without goals, really, it looks really, really difficult for Stankovic. The team is fighting. He's putting more guile and more determination. But, they need to take the chances. And also they travel to this one with up to 8 players injured probably without Gabbiadini, without Sabiri. Only 6 goals scored for Sampdoria away. The win at Cremonese when they won 1-0 was a little bit lucky as well. Atalanta, on the other side, they looked electric. The game against Juventus was a masterpiece from both sides. It was really entertaining to watch, and we are seeing the old Atalanta we knew they were never going to become master of defending, and they can make the most of the pace and the youthfulness of Boga, of Lukman, already 11 goals scored, of Højlund. They scored 37 goals so far, 3 points behind the second place Milan. So they are in the race to go again to the Champions League, although at the beginning of the season it was not their objective. So it will be amazing to do that. Midweek, Atalanta got another important game, quarterfinal of the Coppa Italia against Inter, so big week for them. They won 5 of the last 6 against Sampdoria. I think they're going to win. The odds for Atalanta to win are not great. Even the Asian handicap -1 is not great. Over 2.75 goals, 195. If there are 3 goals, you win half your stake. If there are more than 3 goals, you win 195.
Super favorites, and Atalanta, they need to improve their home form. 3 defeats already this season. They are 10th in the standings when they are playing at home. On Sunday, Dani, Milan Sassuolo, another big club in trouble. Milan, of course, after losing in this way, the final of the Super Cup, then they got 4 against Lazio. No victories in the last 3 Serie A games. Luckily for them, they are playing against a very poor Sassuolo. What is going on with Milan?
This is the worst period under Pioli. I think not only the new signings, the likes of the Cateller, Origi, Dest, have not performed. They're nowhere near the starting 11, really. But also some of the old guards, if you look at Tomori, Teo Hernandez, Calabria, Benacer, they're not performing as well as they did last year. You might argue last year they reached the peak, so the only way was down. But even players like Leao, they had a really strong dip in form and they're becoming more inconsistent. Wonder whether Pioli could tweak the system a little bit, make them a little bit more solid at the back. This back four is conceding a lot of goals, no clean sheet in the last 7 games. They're going to be without Tomori, who pick up an injury as well. Winless in 5, if you consider they also crashed out of the Italian Cup. Now the hope is they're going to sign Zaniolo for Roma, so to rejuvenate and to get a little bit more of dynamism up front. It might work, but I think the problem for Milan at the back, and as long as Mike Magnan, Magic Mike, is out, I think you can tell they're not suffering, not just because Tatarusano is not as good as Magnan, but also because of the distribution, the way that defense is organized. Another place, Sassuolo, which again is one of the biggest disappointment of the season, but they had a good reaction at Monza, as they expected to do, and they got the first point of the new year. They could have won, actually, but the last 2 games away from home, both to score. They also had chances to win the games against Fiorentina, then in the end lost. They don't score many goals away. That's the problem. And at home, they've also been inconsistent, but now the return of Berardi is giving them a little bit more of structure. Only 6 points away, 6 goals scored for Sassuolo. Look, I cannot think about Milan keeping another clean sheet here, but probably I could imagine Milan winning this one. But it's going to be, if Milan win this one, it's going to be a high-scoring game. So I'm going to go for both to score and over 2.5 goals, which pays 250.
Also, Newcastle won Zaniolo, so Milan, they are going to have to fight against Premier League clubs that they always have more money, of course. Next game, Danny, Juve Monza. We saw this game actually only some days ago in the Coppa Italia. Juve won 2-1. We have to talk, of course, about the sanction, the penalty for Juve, 15 points for cooking the books. You mentioned it actually some weeks ago. And at the end, what is the goal for Juventus in the season? How can we trust them? Because it's going to be difficult for them to play in Europe next season.
Look, regardless of what's happening in the court, and obviously there are a lot of degree of judgments, probably this final punishment is not really the final one, or it could be also the tip of the iceberg for other Italian teams. There is still a Serie A to be played. There are still 19 games to be played, and Juventus' objective is at least to finish within European competition, whether it's Conference League and Europa League, and they could do it based on recent form. They won 8, lost 1, drew against Atalanta. They can obviously do it, but I think the reaction against Atalanta was good because they went behind, then went 2-1 up, went behind again, and managed to draw. And it was a Juventus more spirited, more cohesive, more compact. Of course, as soon as they start attacking a little bit, at least as soon as they start stretching, they leave gaps at the back 3 of Juventus with Alexandro, Danilo, and Bremer, I don't think is good enough to compete against top teams. But, up front, Juventus, of course, got quality. Di Maria was the best player once again. He's very inconsistent because of his injuries. Chiesa has been back. He scored a beautiful goal against Monza. I think Juventus will probably going to take all the cautious away and go for it now. So I would imagine from now on to see more high-scoring game in Juventus games. Monza is a very well-coached team. Palladino make a lot of changes during the game, and all of the changes affect the games positively. Monza is a team that score against top teams. They beat Juventus, they score against Milan, they score 2 against Inter, always score in the last 6. It's a team that's got a lot of threat, a lot of potential, and yes, they look comfortable in the table. I think we're going to see a similar game to the one we saw in the Coppa Italia. Over 2.5 goals, 193.
Palladino, former Juve player, of course.
Yes, as well.
It's going to be interesting how Juventus players are going to face the second part of the season after getting deducted 15 points. Next game, Danny, we have a very good Sunday actually in Serie A. Lazio Fiorentina. We have Lazio in the 3rd spot. As we've mentioned before, they scored 4 against Milan. They also won in Sassuolo, so they seem to have recovered after a bad streak of results. They lost to Juve or Lecce recently, and they are playing against a Fiorentina, Danny, that we expected a little bit more in this second part of the season from them. Only 1 victory in the last 5 games. The last game, remember, a defeat at home against Torino.
Both teams are going to play midweek afterwards, the quarterfinals in the Coppa Italia, so I think this is going to be in their mind. And I think, although Lazio are super in forms, they collected the 7th home wins against Milan 4-0. proper Sarri blueprint, proper Sarri ball, if you like, but the way they play, the interchanges, the quick passes, the attacks, and the way they pass the ball, it was beautiful to watch. And they won against Milan without Immobile and score 4 goals. Despite all of this, you have to take into account that the calendar and the fixtures have not been really generous with Lazio. Fiorentina played the game on Saturday evening. Lazio played on Tuesday evening, and they're going to meet on Sunday afternoon. So there are 3 days rest more for Fiorentina, again, with the midweek game coming up afterwards for the Coppa Italia. So this could be a factor. Obviously, they're much more rested. But yeah, Lazio are in form. Lazio, I mean, the only problem with Lazio is that sometimes they switched off, they dip in tension, but in terms of the organization and the way they improved since last year, actually, since the second half of last year, since they get knocked out of the European competition and Sarri had more time to train, it's been really, really good to watch. For Fiorentina, step backwards against Torino because they were dominated. Torino had a lot of chances. You would expect the team from Italiano really to impose themselves. No goals in the last 2 for Fiorentina after a very good streak. We'll see, because I think the changes and the fatigue could play a part. This is a very difficult one to predict, actually, although Lazio have won the 6 out of the last 7 games against Fiorentina. So there's been a very different golfing class between the two. I'm going to go for over 1 goal in the first half, which pays 201. So basically, if there is 1 goal in the first half, only 1 goal, you get your money back. If there are more than a goal in the first half, you win 201.
And the last game we have on Sunday, Napoli, Roma, Derby del Sole with Napoli. I think they've won the Scudetto in the first part of the season, Danny, with 12 points advantage from the second. Now they can only lose it, in my opinion. I guess everyone is very excited in Napoli, but the title, the Scudetto, is theirs. The first challenge is going to be Roma. They won at the Olimpico this season already, and Roma, they are not playing great, but lately they are getting the results, especially thanks to that duo, that partnership, Dybala-Abraham.
Look, when it comes to Napoli and the Scudetto, it's very easy to say they won the Scudetto because they are on plus 12 on Milan and plus 13 on Inter. But you just have to take out your calculator and do this very simple calculation. Napoli got 50 points. Now they go other 19 games to play. If in the 19 games they play, they collect only 38 points, which means to get 2 points per game, winning at home and drawing away, they finish with 88 points. Now, if they finish with 88 points, Inter and Milan, they need to collect themselves 50 points. So do exactly what Napoli did in the first round of fixtures to match them and to go equal. Can actually Milan and Inter do it? Yeah. I don't think they can. That's the reason why Napoli are obviously champions of Italy, basically with 19 games to spare, because I don't think mathematically it's very difficult for Inter and Milan, and even for Juventus, even if they get the points back, to collect 50 points, only 1 defeat. But I'm expecting Napoli in the second half of the season to probably dip in form, to collect less than 50 points and not going to get 200 points. Also, there is the Champions League against Eintracht Frankfurt. It will be daft for Napoli not to do a little bit of turnover. Against Salernitana, very professional display. They are unbeaten in 7 games against Roma. They might get Kvaratskhelia back from the start. I think this is going to be a game with a lot of goals, though. Although both defenses are good, 14 goals conceded for Napoli, 16 for Roma. I think Roma are going to go for it. The Napoli defenses lately hasn't convinced me too much. Meret did a very good save against Salernitana. They are susceptible of leaving a few gaps, and Roma are in good form. They are unbeaten in 9 games away. They are the second teams in the table for points collected away from home, and they are really close to the second place. One point from the second place. Dybala and Abraham. Dybala is magnificent, and people in Turin will wonder why did we let him go. Abraham seems to be in a better form. The break, it probably helped him. They scored 8 in the last 5 games with Dybala back. And remember, when Dybala wasn't there, the goals dried up. Now, the only question mark is Zaniolo case. We know that Zaniolo wants to leave. Mourinho thinks he's going to stay. Comes the 1st of February, we'll know. Can this cause a little bit of tension? But let me tell you, if Roma get 30 million for Zaniolo, they can go out and buy a very good midfielder like Frattesi or even Ziyech from Chelsea, maybe with a loan and close to buy. which is going to improve them as well. For this one, over 2.5 goals, 202.
So shame, no, that the career of Zaniolo is going down due to the injuries.
Due to the injuries.
Exactly. Let's see if he can recover, because he had a lot of quality. Let's see if he still has it. And for Monday, we have still one game, Udinese Verona. Udinese, they broke their bad streak with the victory in Genoa against Sampdoria. You mentioned before that they didn't deserve to win, whereas Verona, they are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, still 5 points away from salvation, but at least they are getting some results lately, Danny.
Oh, I mean, the work of Bocchetti is paying off after they sacked Cioffi. You know, but took a while, couple of weeks for Bocchetti to impose his style, and they're a much more aggressive team, very direct. Up front is Milan Juric, the main man, target man, and it really helps them. They score a few goals from set pieces. They're a physical team, not perhaps the most technical side, but they had a very comfortable win against Lecce, only lost one in the last 4, scoring 4 out of the last 5. Went to San Siro and only lost 1-0 against Inter. Whereas Udinese, I think they were lucky to win at Genoa. A draw would have been much fair result. It was the first win in 12 games for Udinese, a team that after a very strong start, they look a little bit leggy, a little bit tired, and I cannot understand it even after the World Cup break. They only score 1 goal or less in 8 out of the last 9 games. So normally, Udinese games are not high scoring, also because they might still be without Gerard Deulofeu. The value here is on the double chance for Verona, because the bookies thinks Udinese are going to win it fairly easy. So I'm going to go for an X2 here, 210 for Verona. So obviously you got two results out of 3.
All right, Verona, they are the worst team playing away in the Serie A, we have to say. Only 3 points, only 3 draws. 5 goals scored, 14 goals conceded, but they have to improve also their away form if they want to find salvation. Sassuolo is 5 points away. Well, Danny, very interesting the Serie A. Perhaps not the Scudetto race this year as in the previous one, but still many things to analyze. Let's go for the extra. Let's go for your safe bet, Danny.
Inter to win at Cremona, 156.
Okay, and your ACCA?
Empoli Torino double chance X2, Atalanta to beat Sampdoria, Juventus Monza over 1.5 goals, Napoli Roma over 1.5 goals. The total odds, not amazing, good enough, 338. Okay,
getting a bit stingy, Danny, but let's.
I want to get one in the bag. I want to get one in the bag this week. Exactly.
It's important to recover. Thank you, Danny. Thanks everyone for watching. Remember that we want to know your opinion, so leave your comments and back us. Just press the like and subscribe. See you, Danny. Bye bye.
Ciao Edu.